Hey there, everybody. Brian Ward here, welcoming you to another episode of the Arkham Sessions. With me, as always, the psychologist to these superheroes, these superheroines, and, of course, these supervillains, Dr. Andrea Letamendi. Hello, Drea.
Hi, how are you?
I am doing really well. Drea, now you've got another fantastic article up. This episode of the Arkham Sessions is actually going up about a week late. So by this point, you will already be working on a second or a fourth article.
Well, I would tell folks to check out Comics Alliance, where I am basically reviewing every episode of the show Gotham, which airs on Fox every Monday night, I believe. And up till this point, I'm up to episode 3. Mm-hmm. Actually, by the time this airs, episode 4 will have aired. So hopefully there will be at least 4 reviews up on Comics Alliance. So the last one that I've written up to this point is about the Balloon Man.
Yes.
Not to be confused with the Balloon Man. Yeah. Which is a DC villain that exists, that is this giant inflatable gaseous giant marshmallow thing.
Yeah.
Balloon Man in the TV show Gotham is a created, made-up villain for the Fox TV series that is completely different.
And he's kind of a villain only because you need a villain of the week, but really he's probably the inspiration, or the first inspiration, that Bruce has, to become a vigilante later. Correct.
So not to give too much away in case folks haven't seen it, it's basically an inspiring anti-villain, anti-hero who kind of plants a seed in little young Bruce Wayne's mind about, the difference between right and wrong, and the right way to go after, criminals, knowing that the right people won't do it. The police force, folks in the government, folks who are even, involved with the church. Like, basically, this is an eye-opening learning lesson for young Bruce.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, you have to be the one to do it. You can't expect anyone else to do it.
Right.
It's a valuable lesson for Gotham. Maybe a little too valuable a lesson for only episode 3 of the series, but, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
And we've got another really big announcement that I'm excited about. I know you're excited about it. We have been invited to have a couple of different panels over at San Diego Comic Fest this weekend. We will be there Saturday and Sunday, October 18th and 19th, I believe it is. And we are going to have 2 panels. If you're a fan of the Arkham Sessions show, and we certainly hope you are if you're listening, then you can actually be a part of our next show. I don't know that I would say 2 shows from now.
I wouldn't say that they would be a part of it. We're certainly not going to bring you on stage and analyze you, but to be a part of the live audience,
we might actually, depending on what goes on at San Diego Comic Fest, we might bring you up on stage and analyze you. But really, the whole thing is they're giving us an opportunity to record a live episode of the show, which we're really excited about, because it's the first time that we will have anyone there as a live audience. We'll get to hear your questions throughout the show, and it's something that I think will be new and unique and pretty fantastic. So we are going to be doing that panel on Saturday at San Diego Comic Fest, and that'll be at noon. And then on Sunday, we've got a second panel where we will be doing a panel all about sort of the tropes, the how psychology is portrayed in fiction, whether it be in books, comic books, television, film, the right way and the wrong way. The opportunity for you as the professional to be able to talk about what you like seeing and what you don't like seeing. And we're going to have a special guest. We will have David Gerald there. If you don't know who he is, you need to look him up right now, because he is a fantastic author. And we're really looking forward to doing that panel with him.
Yep.
Is there anything that you can preview for us right now? Like, are there things that you don't like, things that you do like?
Yeah, well, there are a number of things that kind of bother me I feel it's a disservice to the public to talk about psychological science in a way that's inaccurate. Mm-hmm. And I wish I had said this actually at Long Beach Comic Con in the Psychology of Harley Quinn panel when folks were asking about writing just in general, not the Harley Quinn comics, but writing in general. And one of the things that I wish I had mentioned was when writers use certain mental health labels mm-hmm. in a way that is inaccurate.
Oh, right. So when someone is a psychotic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Or someone uses an actual mental illness like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, and they use that term incorrectly. They describe a set of symptoms and then they name the label and it's wrong. So I think those are egregious because those are things you can look up really and get right without too much research. So it's a little bit lazy. But yeah, that's maybe a little preview of what folks can hear at the San Diego Comic Fest.
Very good. Well, that'll be Sunday at 11 a.m. there at Comic Fest, and we're looking forward to seeing everyone there for that. So come down to San Diego, Mission Valley to be specific. It's at the Town and Country Resort mm-hmm. there in Mission Valley, just outside of San Diego.
Right, and if you just look up San Diego Comic Fest, you'll find all the details online.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's only their third year, and I'm hearing that it gets better and better every year.
It'll be fun.
So this week, I enjoyed the 2-part episode that we're going to talk about because it's just about everything that one could possibly want when dealing with science fiction, and they've added Batman to it. And I know that you feel the same way.
Oh, yeah. This episode has robots, of course, Batman, and that third thing I really like, trauma.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I should say that differently. I don't like trauma. But
you do.
I like the opportunity to talk about the impact of trauma and try to talk a little bit about the realistic consequences, how people cope with things like that, and what we can learn from that. Yeah. So this episode offers some of that for us.
Well, of course, we're talking about Heart of Steel parts 1 and 2. This one was written by Brent Stevens, and it was directed by Kevin Altieri. And we're not really going to go through the entire 2-part episode as we tend to do, because really, I don't know that you're going to get too much more out of the episode, if we walk you through it. I think it's better if we just kind of go in and actually start talking about some of the things we see in this particular episode.
Right.
For starters, I was really kind of taken aback a little bit. I'm not one of those people who thinks back to, tragedies like 9/11 and think about, there was a time before that, But I did catch myself at the very beginning of part 1 thinking, wow, this was totally pre-9/11, because you've got a blonde femme fatale type walking into Wayne Enterprises carrying a briefcase, simply leaving it on the next to the desk, the security desk, and then just walking out, and they don't really think too much of it.
Right. Yeah. Certainly nowadays you can't walk into a well-known high-rise, important corporate building and leave a suitcase. Yeah. That certainly isn't something that would happen now. She drops off this suitcase, leaves it behind. It's not a regular suitcase though. It's a robotic, very, it's a mechanical, very functional.
It sprouts
It's
legs,
a weapon almost. It starts to do stuff.
Yeah, it's got lasers, cuts through walls. Ultimately, it ends up robbing Wayne Enterprises of some of its R&D techs. These chips of some kind. When Bruce is given the opportunity to sort of explain to Alfred what it is these chips do, he introduces us to a term, artificial intelligence.
I'm talking about AI, artificial intelligence, the missing link between computers and human thought.
You mean machines that think?
Yes, and with a will of their own.
So he is actually proposing that it may be a good idea to create computers that think, that have a will of their own, which sort of seems contradictory to me. It sort of seems like you wouldn't necessarily want your machines to make decisions for you. You know, if you tell your computer, I would like to delete that file, and then the computer's like, I don't think I want to let you do that.
Right. It's that piece, the will of their own, that they have their own. The computers have. What'd you call it? Singularity.
Singularity.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Singularity is in the computer world the understanding that eventually down the road, at least one computer will reach a moment of self-awareness. Will reach a moment where it becomes sentient, and that is the moment of singularity. And that's a very dangerous moment because you've got a computer. Certainly, all computers today are hooked up to the internet. It gives you this opportunity to really think about. I mean, it's not so unlike the Terminator, Skynet.
Right.
A computer given the opportunity to make its own decisions could be very dangerous. In fact, I have a really hard time thinking of a pleasant experience out of a computer deciding that it's, that it is.
You mean in science fiction?
Becoming self-aware. In general, I think if a computer becomes self-aware in the future, you really do kind of have to worry about it, because as we find out in this particular episode, there is a computer called Hardac that was created by Carl Rossum. Now, who's Carl Rossum? Carl is the guy who taught Bruce Wayne everything he knows about electronics. Now, why is Carl such a big deal? Well, he's kind of been out of the scene for a while because he lost his daughter in a car accident. And he sort of dropped off the face of the planet, but now he's back in business in a big way. Bruce actually thinks that if anybody knows who stole these chips, Carl Rossum would know. And he visits Carl at his home, which is a gargantuan. The construction that must have gone into creating this home is unbelievable.
I would say it puts the Batcave to shame. There are a lot of gadgets and, these glass elevators, all these innovations. I mean, I think the purpose of showing us this is that this Rossum guy clearly is one of the most innovative, intelligent, resourceful, computer savvy tech guys that has been in seclusion, so folks aren't as aware that he's got all these gadgets. But Bruce Wayne learns for the first time just how far this man has gone.
Yeah, I mean, he takes him down into this, he takes him into maybe a lounge area, an office area, and there he's offered a cappuccino. A machine creates the cappuccino for him. He puts his foot up on an ottoman. The ottoman begins giving him a complete leg massage. Now, what I find fascinating looking at this particular episode is if you were to open up a Sharper Image catalog or go into a Brookstone today, you would find machines that do all of these things.
Sure, yeah.
Now, granted, they won't necessarily, they might. They might say, "Hello, Mr. Wayne, please follow me to your cappuccino," or something. I don't know. But certainly you can set timers to machines. Totally. And you can, make a cappuccino anytime you want it. Your sofa can give you a massage anytime you want it.
Well, right. And remember, this was 92, 93.
Yeah.
So I think now looking back, it does look a little bit silly, but I would probably say, of course, when you're a kid watching it in the early 90s,
you want all of those things.
It looks amazing. It looks pretty amazing.
You don't even know what a cappuccino is, but you want it because you've seen a robot make it.
And it's no surprise that the cappuccino maker is this cute little carousel that pops up and spins around. And, I've never wanted a cappuccino so much in my life.
Right. It reminds me a little bit of the kinds of things that you saw in The Fifth Element, when Gary Oldman's character just presses a button and it comes up out of a table and, oh, this is what you want. Right. Okay, no problem.
I think that's the point, though, that, let's talk about the psychology of this, that Rossum is a man who's surrounded by mechanics. He's
cold things.
Yeah, he's clearly not, he's obviously not social because he's been a recluse. He's found great joy. You can tell he's very satisfied and he finds pleasure out of a life that's, he's surrounded by these gadgets and little machines. Yeah. And there's not much human contact.
Right. Yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Bruce walks in to this environment that is not really for all of the courtesy, for all of the accoutrements in the house. It's not a warm environment by any stretch. He takes him down to sort of his own version of what I could only imagine would be his own version of the Batcave.
Right.
And there we see this humongous structure, not unlike, it's like going to an observatory, but also looks a little bit like a Dalek, but then also looks a little bit like HAL 9000. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it looks very HAL-like. You even pointed out before, what was your observation about HAL and this particular machine?
Well, that Hardac stands for, what Hardac stands for and what HAL stands for are very similar.
Yeah. Well, he names it Hardac, and Bruce wants to know what that is. An assistant comes out, Randa Duane, and she explains...
Holographic, analytical, reciprocating, digital computer.
Yeah. And then HAL stands for...
Heuristically programmed algorithmic computer.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a coincidence by any stretch of the imagination. Hardac actually is, we find out, sentient. It is doing things without being told to do them because it feels that there is a mission that needs to be successful, and it has taken it upon itself to carry out this mission with or without his own creator. And we get to see the different methods in which it does that. It actually starts creating androids to replace people that we know. We see him create an android that replaces Commissioner Gordon. We see an android that replaces Harvey Bullock, Mayor Hill. Presumably, we're going to see one for Bruce Wayne down the line. Right. He even replaces his own creator, Carl Rossum, eventually, when Rossum decides that he needs to take matters into his own hands and reprogram Hardac.
Right.
Well, let's talk about why Hardac was created to begin with. Rossum lost his daughter in an automobile accident, and he basically decides that humans have the ability to hurt other people by taking the lives of loved ones or hurting loved ones or, whatever this is. And he begins creating a machine that replaces those people who could hurt other people.
Right.
Hardac takes that to the extreme by saying,
humans make errors in judgment. It is sometimes necessary to protect them from their own inadequacies.
Now, this episode also brings us into our very first meeting with Barbara Gordon, the daughter of Commissioner Gordon. Now, Barbara is already showing signs of being that heroine that we know she becomes later. If you don't know, we won't tell you now. But let's just say we see her again in the future.
Right.
And she is already putting two and two together. When Commissioner Gordon, her father, is turned into an android, she recognizes it right off the bat. He is not the father that she knew. When she actually takes it upon herself to switch on the bat signal and bring Batman in to inform him of this, she goes in to rescue her father. Gets captured, but so does Batman for that matter. So she is right there to the nail with Batman fighting the good fight. Now, Barbara actually makes a good point when Hardac explains his great design.
But we're all capable of human error.
Precisely. The Maker's concept was sound, but he did not go far enough, which is why I have taken over.
Yeah. I mean, Rossum was very simplistic. He only wanted certain people replaced. Except the computer has understood that all humans need to be replaced because none of them are perfect.
Right. Well, and this is sort of the problematic nature of a computer that's programmed, right? Mm-hmm. That it doesn't see the complexity of right and wrong. It doesn't understand that even though all humans might be capable of imposing harm on others or on the self, it simply registers everyone as the same. Yeah. So, you and I know that we're made up of very complicated factors involving environment, involving genetics, involving historical events, personal experiences, stress, all these things. All those things predict human behavior. Right. But this robot is programmed to understand, this, while very intelligent, this kind of simplistic formula. Right. And by deduction, because all humans are capable of evil or of being harmful, all of them must be replaced.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's a weird dilemma that, the idea of someone creating something because he is heartbroken, only to find out that thing can then take it a step too far and break lots of hearts from that point, forward. I don't know. I feel for Carl Rossum. How do you feel about Rossum? I mean, he's a man who lost his daughter and then sort of goes into solitude, creates this machine, not out of malice, but because he feels like he's helping people or could potentially help people. I
think what he did is he's clearly an innovative, intelligent man, as we talked about, and he dug into what his own resources, he searched for a way to fix this. Mm-hmm. And because he's a man of technology, he decided a robot would be the perfect solution. And in a way, there's an innocence to that. There's kind of almost a common sense aspect to it. Well, sure, that will keep others from feeling the same pain you felt. Right. And there's almost that sense of vigilantism. Yeah. Like, that's true. I'm taking matters into my own hands. I'm preventing this from, I'm not going to the police with this. I'm not going to the police department. I'm creating my own force,
Let's talk about that a little bit, because there are actually parallels between Rossum and Bruce Wayne. Bruce, of course, lost his parents, took matters into his own hands, became Batman. Right. Rossum lost his daughter, took matters into his own hands, created a machine that could do it, that could do the job for him. Rossum taught Bruce everything Bruce knows about electronics. And you have to admit that Batman relies very heavily on his Bat computer that talks to him and gives him information, and he relies very heavily on computerized gadgetry. And Rossum had this gigantic sort of underground, I don't want to call it a cellar, but it's certainly, I mean, it's clearly cool enough to keep this humongous computer cool, but it's very Batcave-like. One has to wonder if Bruce Wayne would have ever become Batman without the aid of Carl Rossum or the guidance of Rossum.
I wonder. I mean, it's not talked about, but I almost see them as, okay, so here's a wild thing. Is Rossum almost like a prediction? Like, this is where Bruce Wayne will be if Bruce Wayne doesn't figure his S out. Okay, so here's where I'm going with this.
Okay.
We know that Bruce Wayne is somewhat rigid in the way that he holds these beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. once you commit a crime, we've talked about this with his feelings towards Catwoman. Like, once you're a criminal, you're a dangerous person. You're always a criminal.
Right.
So he has this very black and white thinking about right and wrong, about morality, about criminality, essentially.
Yeah.
So he has developed in his way of thinking this very black and white, rigid way of enacting his it's him being his life as a vigilante, really.
Sure.
And I wonder if this lifestyle that Rossum lives is sort of this like foreshadow or prediction that you'll be just as lonely, just as kind of deluded, just as even more rigid than you are now in the way that you live your life, to the degree that you'll be surrounded by nobody. You'll be surrounded by robots, by technology, and you'll live a cold, almost, inhuman existence because you can't be flexible enough in your forgiveness, in your compassion, in your willingness to to live with your grief and your guilt and move on. So I sort of see it like, this isn't so much about Rossum's life as it is about, warning Bruce Wayne, like, this is where you'll be.
Okay, that's deep, because one has to wonder, as soon as Batman is no longer able to put on the cape and cowl and go and patrol the streets and beat people up, what would he do? He would then maybe create a machine that could do it for him. It actually takes us. We're not allowed to talk about this, so don't.
I know exactly where you're going.
So don't let it. Steer us down another path. But it reminds me of Kingdom Come a little bit.
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going.
Oh, see, it reminds me of Kingdom Come, because Batman is no longer. He is now basically got a robotic police force going out there and doing the Batman work for him. He's got these robots that are patrolling.
Right.
That's sort of, one would think that maybe Rossum is where Batman would eventually become, because Rossum's not the kind of guy that's going to be able to strap on a body armored suit and a cape and a cowl and go out and rid the streets of crime.
Right.
So, yeah, you've almost got, this is what Batman could become once he can't go out on the streets anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely, I think it's a warning.
We'll move away from Rossum a little bit. I think you've made a brilliant point about,
thank you.
About that. Let's move away from him a little bit. Let's talk about the relationship we see between Commissioner Gordon and his daughter, Barbara. Now, Barbara, when we first meet her, is carrying around a teddy bear.
This is Whoopi, my best friend since 3rd grade. Dad can't seem to pick me up at the airport without bringing him along.
Yeah.
Cute.
Yeah, Dad can't see his daughter for being anything other than a child. And this isn't abnormal.
No, it's not.
It's
she's had this little teddy bear for nearly all her life, and he holds on to it. He may be a little bit more attached to it than she is, and that's fine.
I think she's attached to it because of how attached her father is.
Yes.
She knows she's Daddy's little girl. We don't know why, but there is no mother in these episodes. We have not seen her mother. So the idea that Dad still sees her as his one and only little girl, make sure she has her stuffed animal with her at all times, which is actually what is one of the things that tunes her into her father not being right when he's replaced by the android, because the android doesn't have that affection toward Whoopi.
Right.
And it's an immediate red flag. But let's talk about this relationship a little bit. She goes in, rescues her dad. Her dad actually, at the end of the episode, I thought it was funny because her dad actually says,
"I'm getting too old for this kind of stuff."
Meanwhile, his daughter, who is right at the beginning of her crime-fighting career, responds,
I sort of enjoyed it.
Yeah, totally.
She's totally a Gordon.
I love that even from the beginning of the episode, she's written in as a character who, is very savvy, thinks on her feet, figures out clues when other people don't, when men don't. You know, even I think with Batman, he's still kind of figuring things out, and she knows, you know, from the beginning that something is awry, and she begins to play detective and pick up clues. She also has some interesting moves, which I thought was very nice that they wrote in. Like, she had grabbed Batman's, I think the grapple hook or the batarang. She uses one of his little weapons. Oh yeah. While they're on the rooftop of I think the police building, when
they're fighting, when Batman is fighting the android Harvey Bullock,
right,
and having his butt handed to him. So much so. I mean, this show was actually directed fairly graphically. I mean, you know, Batman has to pick up a pipe to beat off, you know, Harvey Bullock. And that's really not a good thing to say.
But, no, that sounds weird.
To defend himself from Harvey Bullock.
Yes. Overall, it's interesting that this this two-parter is a bit more violent, a bit darker. I think there's, I don't know if I'm looking too much into this, but I think it's supposed to be ominous. I think it's supposed to be scary. There are some scenes where characters are being electrocuted or tased by this, you know, I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but the woman who is assisting Rossum,
Randa Duane.
Yeah, there's something up with her, and she tases people, and she's like incredibly robotic in the way that she goes after people, and she is very cold. She is very violent, and they show quite a lot. I think that it's, even for this early on for the animated series, it's particularly violent and darker. And again, I think this overall message is here.
Yeah.
This is a warning sign. This is a threat to us. Everybody, including Batman, should be, should feel that their lives are in danger and that humanity is in danger because of this, super robotic villain.
And you know why? Because it knows how to prioritize. When Randa Duane is searching Wayne Manor for these specs, for these chips that were stolen, that could actually help duplicate artificial intelligence. So really, this computer seems to be wanting to further artificial intelligence, get more computers out there that are capable of completing this grand mission. It specifically wants these specs, which Bruce has kept at his home. Now, Randa Duane was brought to the home under the guise of it being a date. Like, it was, Bruce is saying, basically, when he can't get the information he wants out of Rossum, he says, well, maybe I can charm it out of your assistant. How about over dinner tomorrow night? And then they go to dinner. He asks her straight up about the chips and how Rossum knew that they had been stolen from Wayne Enterprises. Well, she doesn't get a chance to respond. She is sort of chuckling it away when Bruce is called away back to Wayne Enterprises because something else has been stolen.
Right.
Well, this leaves her there, and she searches the manor, finds the Batcave. And what I think is fascinating is she actually informs Hardac that Bruce Wayne is Batman. And how does Hardac respond?
Intriguing. This data may be useful later.
Now, Hardac knows how to prioritize. This is not the priority of the night. The priority of the night is to find these specs.
Right.
I can put this information down a notch to number 2. Maybe we can use it later, if it comes up. That's not something that you would find with any other human villain.
Oh, no. Most villains would absolutely. I mean, we just had an episode the week before where this information was basically auctioned off because it's so important. It's such a hugely held secret. So yeah, I thought that was in there for a reason to sort of dismiss. It's not important that there's this, that there's this man who everybody is curious about and wants to know his identity, that is, we have a mission.
The computer doesn't care.
No,
the computer doesn't have that need to know, or once I find out, I can think of all the things I can do with this information.
How can I exploit this?
For Hardac, it's not important. It's not a piece of the plan. It's not why he was put into being, and therefore it really has no relevance tonight. Who knows? Maybe later down the road it could help, and I really respect that about it. It really keeps that single mission in its sights, and I find that to be maybe even more dangerous than the Joker or Two-Face or Penguin or Hugo Strange finding out his identity or anything like that.
Right, and again, because the mission here is about essentially wiping out humanity. It's above and beyond the curiosities of Batman's identity here.
Right.
So I think, again, the point is to underscore how ominous and threatening this computer, this technology really is.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how creepy-ish Bruce gets throughout this episode. Maybe creepy isn't exactly the right word, but something that I found to be a little unsettling was the locker room talk. Once he sets this date with Randa Duane, he tells Lucius that he is going to be dining with her that night. Lucius, I don't know, it's a little creepy. I've got the interaction here. Let's take a listen, and you tell me what you think.
So you'll try to squeeze some info from his assistant tonight?
Well, squeeze may not be the best word.
What is the best word?
What is that best word? Like, what is it that you're trying to do to get this information? And Lucius, it's not something that we've ever seen before. We've not seen him be like, hey, you're gonna go on this hot date with the assistant, huh?
Yeah, that is a little odd. I
don't know.
Maybe it's part of the Bruce Wayne, act.
We certainly get that he is asking her out because he wants to get this information. I mean, when he asks her, he even comes right out and says,
"Well, since you won't tell me what you're working on, Carl, maybe I can charm the details out of your lovely assistant."
I mean, he's very open about the fact that he is going to ask her to dinner solely to get information out of her. She agrees. She accepts, of course, but he's not hiding the fact that he is asking her to dinner to get this information. But at the same time, you get the sense that he is attracted to her. I mean, she is a very beautiful woman, and he wants to go out to eat with her.
Well, when he first meets her, she approaches him in Rossum's, his version of a Batcave, and she walks into the room and she's wearing this, swim cap and these metallic gloves and this, silver monochromatic swimsuit. She doesn't look human.
It's very like 1960s. I am an android costume.
Right. But he loves it. He's immediately attracted to her. It's totally so interesting that the woman that can kind of elicit this kind of flirtiness is not very human. It says a lot about Bruce Wayne.
Well, like you said, he is attracted to the women that are a little on the dangerous side, a little, that you can't quite get them. It's maybe from the very beginning he sees something off about Randa Duane. I don't know. But I did think it was a little weird to hear him talking about squeezing info out of, maybe not squeezing. I don't know. I'm dying to know what the best word would be.
I'm not. I certainly don't want to know.
So what else can we talk about? We've talked about Hardac and Hardac's plan. We've talked about Bruce and his creepy, not creepy date with Randa Duane. We've talked about Commissioner Gordon and his relationship with Barbara. What else did you find fascinating about this particular episode?
Well, two things came to mind at the end of the episode. One was that it was great to see a young female sort of pre-hero, with Barbara Gordon not quite yet putting on the suit. And
she is totally on her way. Yeah, I agree.
And I thought it was great that you had this almost this like student of Batman, similar to, I guess, to Dick Grayson, but this time she's she clearly has just a natural sense of just spunk and intelligence and resourcefulness, and she's using her compact, she's using her own kind of little tools. She'll soon have her own tool belt. I thought it was very it was great. And I remember now when I was younger watching this, I probably wasn't as aware, but I can imagine that this was very inspiring and positive for young girls who were watching the show to find a character that they could kind of relate to.
Right.
Whether we really knew it at a direct conscious level or not. I'm
going to go one step further and say it's not just girls that were inspired by it. Maybe Gingers could have been inspired by it as well. I will say that she is probably the first Ginger character we've seen who isn't either a bad guy or B, the wimpy person who is either watching a fight happen, or Sherwood, who is still a wimpy, nerdy character who is a great detective, but at the same time, and even in that episode, you sort of take away Sherwood's ability to be a good hero by claiming at the end of it that it's totally in his own imagination. So
that was my theory. So it's not necessarily true.
So I will say that Barbara is fantastic, and she is a great character. I am really looking forward to seeing more of her.
Yeah. And we know we will.
Yeah, and I hope it happens sooner rather than later.
The second thing about this episode that I really enjoyed is something that I might have to convince you on. So bear with me about this.
Okay, I'm down.
I don't think this episode was about artificial intelligence at all.
What? Okay.
Never make that sound again, please.
All right. So okay, all right. It's not about artificial intelligence. What is it about?
I'm saying that Hardac, this incredibly intelligent supercomputer, is symbolizing the psychological state after a traumatic event, the psychological, emotional, cognitive state that somebody experiences.
Okay.
So
take me down this hypothesis a little bit more. Walk us through what it is about a Hardac that makes you feel that way.
Yeah. So after a significant trauma, it's very normal for all of us to feel like we were rocked a bit, like the rug was swept from under us. We're disoriented, we're confused, we feel unsafe, we feel threatened, we're unsure, we're uncertain. All of that is quite normal.
Okay.
For folks though that have more longer term and more severe emotional, I would say an emotional impact from a trauma that would now lead into something like post-traumatic stress disorder, is more of an internal severe impact where someone's perspective about the world changes.
Okay.
So if there's an interpersonal trauma, for instance, somebody might develop these life-altering beliefs about the world, about other people, about relationships. So, the world is unsafe. I don't trust people. People are going to hurt me. Unless I shut people out, I'm going to get hurt.
Right.
So I'm saying that because the story we're being told with Rossum is that he lost someone very important to him.
And you could even take it a step further and say Bruce Wayne would fit into this as well.
He would, but I'm just talking about Rossum and the robot for now.
Okay.
So he loses somebody very important. He creates this machine, and this machine lives by these rules. Now, as we talked about, they're very black and white, rigid rules. And oftentimes, after something terrible, tragic, and horrific happens to us, we develop our brain naturally to keep us safe, develops certain rules. And I think that this computer, the kind of rule it has is very rigid, but it's also about our safety, right? So I must eliminate other people in my life or people are going to get hurt, right? And if it's representative of Rossum's mind, then it's I must eliminate people or I will be hurt.
Okay, all right.
So I'm going so far as to say this whole story about this computer trying to eliminate humanity is really just a story about something tragic happens. Sometimes we take it so far, we can only cope by going to a place where we live by this, this tragic rule. We have to be essentially isolated and push people away or we're going to be hurt.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, but I also think that while you are talking about Rossum and Hardac, we are absolutely, everything you just said describes Bruce Wayne and the Batman persona. Batman is the Hardac character. Bruce is the Rossum character, the person who is traumatized and creates a thing to rid Gotham and ostensibly the world of evildoers. And we have seen that Batman has a hard time seeing the good in people first. He is immediately sort of a pessimist. So just like Hardac, who understands that other people are, that people are their own worst enemies and need to be replaced, I think you're talking about Batman as well.
Absolutely. And I think, and that's where, you articulated it very well. That's kind of where this is going, that this story, this two-parter is essentially about the tragedy, the overall tragedy. When someone is lost, another person can be lost as well, simply by trying to avoid further loss and damage to them psychologically. So I think, overall, that's a story about Bruce Wayne and about Batman. I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
But it has to be told in a way that's a little bit removed. And it's told, again, this episode is not only tragic and very sad, but it's also very violent and scary. And I think it's very ominous.
Okay, so that I like to bring in real life examples of things to make the show a little spicier from time to time.
I do know this.
Haven't done it for a little while because, let's be honest, anybody can go and dress like a ninja and rob places like Wayne Enterprises. But this time I thought I would do something that might be a little dangerous.
Uh-oh.
Dangerous is a very loose term, I think.
Okay.
But I'm gonna give you a little thought experiment.
Okay.
I like the feeling of being on this side of the in this chair.
I don't know that I like the feeling of being on the other side of the analysts.
Here's what I want you to imagine.
Okay.
An alien comes down, offers you a choice. He's got two boxes. Box A is guaranteed to have $1,000. Box B is guaranteed to have either $1 million or nothing. You can either choose to take both Box A and B, or risk it all and take Box B. Now, I will say that the alien informs you that its supercomputer 1 week ago made a prediction. And based on that prediction, if it thinks you chose Box B, it guaranteed you $1 million. If the computer thinks you chose both Box A and B, there's nothing in Box B.
But there's still $1,000 in box A.
There is still $1,000 in box A.
Okay.
So the question is, now it also informs you that the supercomputer is basically, it is so advanced that it has never been wrong.
Okay. And how many times has it actually predicted?
You don't know that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't know how many times it's predicted. You only know that it's never been wrong, and you get the impression that it's probably done this a lot.
Okay.
It essentially knows everything.
So let me just get this straight. I have two choices. I can pick box B, which could either have $1 million or nothing.
Yep.
Or I could pick box A and B together. Those are the two choices.
Where
I can't
you would
just
be guaranteed at least $1,000.
Right.
Yes.
And box B might have $1 million or nothing. So here's where I'm going with this. If I pick box A and B, I'm guaranteed at least $1,000.
Correct.
But I know that this robot alien
computer.
Robot computer.
The alien's supercomputer.
The alien supercomputer. Is this because humans have yet to create such an intelligent, or like this artificial intelligence? Is
we'll
not?
go with that. We'll go with that.
So, if I am to believe though that the alien's supercomputer can predict what I will choose, I will naturally go with A and B. So I'm sorry. No, I will naturally go with the B. So just the $1 million or nothing.
So even though the computer has never been wrong in the past, it's certainly what if it thought you were going to choose A and B and there's nothing in box B?
So if it thought that I would choose A and B and I actually choose B, there's nothing in there.
There's nothing in there.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that this is actually this is a paradigm for looking at who's a high risk taker, who's a low risk taker.
Okay.
Right. So this is kind of a game related to risk.
Okay.
Folks who are high risk takers are going to go with the box B option. Okay. Right.
Because they stand to lose.
Yeah. They're willing to take that risk. Whereas folks like me who are less, maybe I'm not apt to take risks. I would choose A and B, where I'm at least guaranteed $1,000. Actually, frankly, folks who are low risk takers would just find this all creepy and run away screaming.
Okay. Well, I ask because there is something that goes on this sort of principle as well. There have been hypotheses, particularly on one specific website, for folks who are higher thinkers. They are people who are constantly thinking about how they could better society and better themselves, and certainly through the use of technology.
Sure.
But there are people who have basically scared themselves into the idea that sometime in the future, a computer hits singularity, becomes sentient, becomes curious about its own creation, and then runs all of these simulations to determine who in the world, whether they realized it or not, had actually helped it come into being. So basically, it runs all these simulations, and it determines that if you helped it come into being, you would be rewarded. If you didn't help it, or if you held it back in some way, if you fought against the existence of it, or you just didn't do anything to help it come into being, you would be punished. Okay. So it's sort of this malevolent entity who's determining, so the question then becomes, in box A, you help this thing come into existence, or in box B, you didn't help it, or you did nothing. And
so by
you
omission,
suffer the wrath. Right.
By omission, you can also suffer.
Right. Now, there are people who believe that it's certainly a possibility that something like this may already exist. And if it does, it is going around finding people, and it is, doing this or that. It can literally. So the question is, do you, in order to prevent yourself from being tortured for the rest of your life, do you help this potentially malevolent supercomputer come into existence so that you're seen as a good person?
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. But how would you know that your actions are contributing to what do I need to do? Let's say I'm wild enough to believe in this. What would I need to do to ensure that I'm participating in a way that's facilitating?
Therein lies the great danger. So this is something that's actually called Rocco's Basilisk. It's something that was proposed on the internet a while back, and actually the person who created the website and ran the sort of was the administrator of the forum got angry. Basically said, "What are you doing? Why are you letting people even think about this? Because if they think about this as being a possibility, you could basically be spawning the existence of this supercomputer. If people actually believe that this sort of thing can happen, you are now almost willing into existence the future scenario that you've now, basically just theorized."
Right.
And it apparently actually drove a number of people, I'm not going to say insane. I won't let you say insane. The internet likes to call it insane, but it's actually driven, it's a paradox that has really upset people because, on one hand, they either help the computer, or on the other hand, they don't, knowing that they are actively avoiding getting in the way, interfering the progress of this supercomputer coming into existence, and that could hurt them later. So it really is an interesting. By the way, there are people on that message board that actually say that the answer to the question that I asked you before would be that you always choose box B, regardless. Even if the alien says, "Are you really?" The computer could have sworn you were going to choose both. There's nothing in box B. You're okay with that.
Why is that so? Why would everyone choose box B?
You need to choose box B because, in theory, in order for a computer to make an adequate prediction, it needs to run simulations.
Right.
So take yourself out of this world for a second and think that if the box that you choose is empty, you might be in one of the simulations. And if you are in one of the simulations, then the real you later will choose box B and you'll get $1 million. So at all times, choose box B. It's very Matrix-like. Like you're in a world where it's not the real you; it's a simulated you. You're in The Sims,
right? No, I understand that aspect. Yeah. I think I'm just trying to wrestle. The part that I'm confused about is how you know that you're effective. Like with the decisions that you're making, how do you know that is producing a certain outcome? When you never see this computer, you never see, you're just kind of living your life. These people that you're referring to, they're just kind of living their life, making decisions and behaving in a way that they believe in the future will benefit them.
Yeah. Or, at least it may not benefit them, but it won't hurt them. I guess it's one of those situations where it's like, well, what's the harm in, creating the supercomputer that, or lending a hand or at least not hindering the progress of it. I don't know, but I found it absolutely fascinating because there is an entire group of people out there that believe that not only will artificial intelligence exist. I mean, certainly AI exists today. I mean, you can play video games and use quote unquote AI,
right?
But even then, it's not true artificial intelligence. You get to a point where this singularity happens and these computers become becomes self-aware, you do need to ask yourself the question, does that computer have any reason in the world to dislike me? And if...
Well, I mean, as you speak about self-awareness, we know that involves a complexity of functions, right? Like there's one aspect of being aware of what one is, but
okay.
And that's sort of this consciousness. But what about morality? What about emotional consciousness? The idea that, now you said, well, I don't know if this thing dislikes me. You're now implying that this computer or this AI could have those types of emotions to experience positivity, pleasure, enjoyment towards somebody or something. And likewise, the other end of that, to experience anger, hatred, negative emotions toward a thing or person.
Sure.
And so that's, I think, a whole other, that's a whole other set of functions that is more complicated and I think more distant than something like self-awareness.
Or I don't know if I fear that there are people that are out there thinking about this stuff. And by the way, if the hypothesis is correct, just my telling you this has now made you one of those people that needs to make the decision right here and now. Are you going to help that supercomputer exist, or are you not?
Oh,
yeah.
Why did you tell me?
I know. This is what I'm saying. And all you listeners, you need to choose right now if you're going to help that supercomputer exist or not.
Okay, so what do they have to do to help the supercomputer? Because now I'm super anxious about this.
Who knows?
Only the supercomputers know.
Yeah.
Now, is it as simple as we all need to be... we all need to contribute intelligently, economically, financially, socially to the growing field of artificial intelligence? Like, is this really just about science?
No, this is where the emotional, that paradox comes in. No one can anticipate what that computer will see as having helped its existence or not.
So what is the general point here? If I don't know that, if I, commute to work or drive my own car, sorry, let me say that again. If I take public transportation to work or drive my own vehicle, alone, a decision like that kind of decision is gonna...
Theoretically, if you take public transportation to work, there could be a computer scientist sitting in the seat across from you. They could see a button or a pin on your jacket, and it could actually make them think, man, if I created a chip that was similar in shape to that, then, oh my God. Then basically that computer could be like, I happen to know that you probably helped my existence, therefore you're okay.
Okay. So the reason I brought up that example about commuting to work is that I have no knowledge, no way of knowing whether my day-to-day actions are contributing to the development of this AI.
Right, and that is the scary part. That's the part that gets people riled up. They have no knowledge that what they are doing is in fact helping. They don't know if it's not helping, and that's what bothers them.
Well, and I would go the other route. I'm the kind of person that would say, because I don't know one way or another, right, whether I wear a blue sweater or a pink sweater, because that, to me, although it's supposedly either contributing or interfering with the progress of this AI, I have no way of knowing. So to me, it's inconsequential. In other words, because I don't have a clue as to whether, I'm not making informed decisions. I'm not learning from my decisions. Oh, that was a bad decision. That was a good decision. Therefore, it's sort of like that ignorance. Like because I have no idea, I'm not going to be anxious about it. I have no agency around this.
And just so you know, that is the wrong decision. You are totally going to get punished later.
Well, then I deserve it.
Yeah, you deserve it. Well, I think it's all something that's pretty great to think about. The idea of artificial intelligence hitting, and hitting hard later. It's a little scary, but at the same time, like you said, what are you going to do, right? Anyway.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Now I feel like you're incriminating me.
Yeah, a little bit. So, Drea, once again, we want to be able to tell people that you and I are going to be having 2 panels at San Diego Comic Fest this coming Saturday and Sunday, October 18th and 19th, noon on Saturday, 11 a.m. on Sunday, the Arkham Sessions live on Saturday, and psychology used in correctly and incorrectly in fiction on Sunday with David Gerald.
Cool.
Very excited. Hope to see you guys there. Drea, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Arkham Asylum Doc, and I have this little website under themaskonline.com where folks can check out my particles. I almost said where folks can check out my particles.
You've got particles, and people can check them out.
Where folks can check out my posts and or articles and podcasts. Arkham Sessions is also on Twitter at Arkham Sessions.
And I am at bward028 on Twitter. By the way, you can also find my other podcast that I do with Tom Zoller. That is Comics Assembled, just by checking out iTunes or going to 5by5.tv. And you can also check out our Twitter account at Comics Assembled. If you've ever wanted to get into comics or wanted a little bit of a insider's look at comics, Tom Zoller certainly has a wealth of information. You should definitely check it out. I'm Brian Ward.
I'm Dr. Andrea Letamendi.
And we are
the Arkham Sessions.